This field trip, in the area north of Maidstone in Kent, was to investigate two leys which meet at a point which was given to me by the Guild of Pagans as a grid reference of a place where pagan worship had taken place. This was to see if there is evidence that such places are subconsciously sighted, as places of worship of all religions seem to be. See the video The Hidden Unity on this channel. Both seem to be reasonably good leys, and in a fairly small area. 3 churches and a castle and Kit's Coty dolmen occurred on them, as well as a number of minor points. It turned out not to be successful in that, but nevertheless was very interesting and enjoyable, and some interesting findings came from it. Also, it was a day of some very spectacular skies, and it was worthwhile to capture these on video. 4 people took part: Lionel Beer, Reg Allen, Eileen Roche and myself. First we visited Lower Kit's Coty, a dolmen which had been demolished and then brought back in the orders of the landowner. The stones were simply piled back in a heap, but the site was original. The tall trees have gone from this site, and only traces of them remain. It's still, however, seemingly a place to see unusual fungi, and we saw some on a previous trip here, and there was more growing round the stones this time. The field around is full of oyster shells, apparently dating from Roman times, and on this occasion we also found a scallop shell, plus flow blue pottery fragments and pieces of 19th and 20th century lemonade bottles. But neither of the 2 leys I was investigating go through this site.
The remains of a Neolithic burial mound of unknown shape and size.
Where's your tree, Lionel? That's a tree.
There's remains of a huge tree.
Well, there are fetishes in there.
Yeah, when we went to the Something Well at Trellick, there was a whole lot of things tied up in the tree there.
Is that a pathway along there?
So this is the direction towards the pagan worship point.
To earlier, and that one doesn't look like an oyster shell, looks like a scallop shell.
Yes.
Colour on it. That's a bit of Victorian flow blue pottery, and that's probably just a not too old lemonade bottle or wine bottle.
Yes.
Something like that.
And these are oyster shells from...
But the oyster shells
time,
could well date back to Roman times or earlier, but most likely Roman times. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
it.
We walked from here up the track to the other kit's Coty, a dolmen in better state of repair, with a huge capstone, seemingly very popular with large snails, supports and blocking stone. Eileen and I both picked up the lay passing through to the supposed pagan point, and I remembered picking it up when I was here before, as a line passing diagonally across the site. Using binoculars, we could see the churches on this line, and the other in the distance. A lay goes through Burham Court Church and Thurnham Castle.
This one's been cut, hasn't it? Look, somebody's drawn Lionel's portrait.
Oh, look at these snails!
Yeah, that's horrible. There's hundreds of them here too.
A lot of little holes filled up with giant snails, Jimmy.
Oh yeah, Dodman.
It's here. Look. You can come and film me.
I should have brought my little step in.
The lay goes across in this direction. We went back to Burham Court Church and facing the worship point.
Continued up the track until we found a sunny spot in an adjacent field for lunch. Then with little warning the sky darkened and we were hit by a gusting wet front. The track led back to the road again, and Eileen picked up a lay passing through a house there. On looking at my map, I found it was one of the two we were interested in.
Well, it might have got more gap. So I might have got more confidence.
After this we made our way to the Lower Bell pub, below Bluebell Hill, which also had one of the lays passing through it, and its nearby junction adjacent to the dual carriageway flyover. In the car park, Eileen picked up the line, but weakly. On looking at the map again, I found the line actually goes through the pub diagonally in the other direction, not through the car park. Eileen must have been picking up an extreme edge, yet another independent confirmation. In the pub, she seemed to feel it stronger, and after this we left crossing the junction, where she registered the line again quite strongly. Bluebell Hill has been a scene of hauntings, one of which was described on television recently. A girl seemed to run into the path of a car, but could not be found when the driver stopped.
Touch through.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. So, that's good.
Lower bell.
We're just falling off the line now, doing it.
Yes, that's right.
We drove under the dual carriageway and parked by the track which starts behind a petrol station on the A229 and which led to the crossing point I had marked. The map showed a stone called the White Horse Stone nearby, but didn't make its location clear. We located it a quarter of a mile up the path, quite an impressive looking block of sandstone or millstone grit, seemingly with a sighting hole, but Eileen found the place completely dead, and Lionel wondered if it was originally a capstone of another dolmen moved here at some time. The local geology is chalk and flints. There were smaller stones which could have supported this, so it might have been the remains of a burial chamber. It was quite a way off the lines we were following.
What's he looking at? Lined up on the... It's like... Was that a film? This stone doesn't feel as good as the other stone. This stone is much lighter.
So don't you think this looks like it was selected as a capstone
Probably.
rather than that one?
Really?
But I mean, these may have been part of, barrow again. But that might have been a capstone at one time. Example.
That's just been a raided camp.
Perhaps I had some
The straight track, as marked on the map, turned out to be not quite so straight on the ground, but Eileen was puzzled to pick up what seemed to be a very wide line. In actual fact, she was walking along the line, yet another confirmation of its authenticity. However, when we got beyond the power lines, towards the point marked on the map, she seemed to pick up very little, though found one spot when inquiring for the spot marked by the pencil dot. The actual spot seemed very unlikely. It was in a field of stubble. We wandered to a nearby hill and climbed it. There was an excellent view, but once again Eileen found it completely dead, and it was quite a way away from the marked point, or either of the lines anyway.
That's it.
Point should be midway between where the power cables cross and where this belt of trees or bushes are.
Shortly after that there was an even fiercer downpour, and we made our way with difficulty back down the track, which had almost become a river. When the rain stopped, we could still hear the noise. Then we realised it was coming from the high tension power lines above, crackling in the damp atmosphere. When we returned to the car, I felt rather despondent, as it seemed that the pagans had made a mistake in the grid reference, so the lines I found had no significance in this matter. I even began to think that, as no doubt opponents to leys would say, that this shows we can create leys anywhere one wishes. So I didn't bother to suggest going to the other sites, the castle and the churches, which I now regret.
Straight at that pile on top of the hill.
Yeah.
It's a, what do you call it, a sentinel tree?
A royal service tree.
Oh, a service tree.
Later we visited two other quite interesting sites. St Leonard's Tower was a tall, gaunt 11th century Norman castle near West Malling. An attempt to locate a nearby ruined chapel was thwarted by tall, wet undergrowth, failing light and vagueness of the Ordnance Survey map.
This is historic track. that might have actually been windows originally, they'll just be bricked up later on.
They look like real windows from here.
Don't get these castles were jolly drafty jobs, and when they were civilised they put a bit of glass in, they thought, which windows don't we need? Don't forget the original windows are just been wood.
They didn't have glass,
Pushed
did they?
out.
Did they have
When did
glass?
they first start that way?
Well, the Romans had glass, but
The Normans didn't, did they?
I don't know which Romans had glass.
Oh, really?
Let's see, we've been about 1200
Oh, the trees. Well, look at that sort of object going across there. I
It's
mean,
like a lintel.
it just doesn't sort of... Oh, that's quite, yeah. Possible.
Oh, no, because it's no shape of the window, and you wouldn't have a lintel so low down, would you? For defensive purposes.
Well, I mean, don't get over the years of architecture places changing.
And this wall must have been changed.
Yeah.
It may have been meant to prevent that side.
Yeah, I don't want to go.
Allington Castle on the River Medway opposite Maidstone looked like a typical medieval castle. At the time of the field trip it was occupied by a religious order. There was also a brilliant rainbow and a very unusual and beautiful orange sunset.
Looking sky, isn't it?
After returning home and thinking about the matter of the leys, I realised that, as it had been Eileen who had detected them and not myself, that there could be no subconscious wish fulfillment involved. She didn't know the position of the lines when she picked them up on the rods, so although the leys had been found from an erroneous reference, by chance I had hit on 2 genuine leys. Eileen had asked for the spot marked by the dot, not a pagan worship point, and the rods told her, but she didn't get a feeling of significant energy. The fact that the site of the crossing seemed to be of no particular significance brings out an interesting matter. The distinction between sites where 2 leys cross and ley centres. Of course there are many places where 2 leys cross, but there is rarely anything to mark this, and the sites don't seem to be of any great importance. Rarely does a 3rd ley cross there. Centres, on the other hand, are nodal points, and there are usually more than 3 leys crossing there, and they often have a visible significant point. Despite several attempts, I was unable to find any other leys going through the grid reference point to any significant point in the area, which surprised me at the time, but now the reason seems clear.